Hey, what's up, YouTube? Okay, so I decided to try to answer some of the most frequently asked questions. I get calls all day long. Everyone is asking me, is this a CDL school? That is the question that I get asked all the time. Is ACC driving school a CDL school? No, we're just a regular driving school. We teach people to drive cars. We don't teach people to drive trucks. CDL is commercial driver's license. ACC driving school is a regular driving school. My second most frequently asked question would be about the questions that they ask you when you're taking your driving test. I am not really sure why so many people have anxiety about this, because it is a very simple, very straightforward question. Well, it's a series of questions. If you are parked facing uphill, what direction do you turn the steering wheel? I again, for the life of me, I'm not sure why people are so anxious about that. The answers to that question, to those questions, the questions that you will be asked, are as follows. If you are parked facing uphill, you turn left away from the curb. Again, you turn left away from the curb if you are parked on a hill facing upwards. Then they will ask you, what else do you do? You put the car in park. You will tell them this. You put the car in park, you pull up the parking brake, or the handbrake, or the emergency brake, whatever you call it. Pull up the handbrake, and then you turn off the ignition. Again, if you're parked facing uphill, you turn left away from the curb, put the car in park, pull up your parking brake, and turn off the ignition. Okay, that's that. Now, I keep getting asked over and over. I am 18 years old, I am 21, I am 30. I was told by a friend, I was told by this person or that person. I read it in a book that if you're over 18, you don't need to get a learner's permit to take a driving test. That is partially true. What they're not explaining is the nuances of that. Now, if you are 18, 19, 20, 30, whatever, and you don't need to learn to drive, in other words, you are really good at driving, you don't need to take the actual permit in hand. What that means is you can go to the DMV, you can take your written test, and you can immediately take your driving test. Or you can come back later and take your driving test without actually taking the physical permit in hand. And let me explain why people are hesitant about taking their permit in hand after they take the written test and pass it. Because they're under the false impression that if you take the permit, if you pay the $48 for the permit, when you come back for your driving test, you will have to pay again. That is not true. If you pay $48 for your learner's permit, it carries over to your first driving test. In other words, your first driving test will be free because you already paid the $48. So again, the reason people are hesitant to pay and to take their learner's permit after they pass the test is because they think they will have to pay again. You wouldn't have to pay again. But again, let me explain the nuances that I'm talking about. If you are over 18 and you take your written test and pass it, and you need to learn to drive, this is what no one is telling you. If you need driving lessons, if you need to call ACC driving school or any other driving school, or mom or dad or friend or family members to learn to drive, you need to learn to drive on the streets of Florida, you need a learner's permit. That is specifically what the learner's permit is and what it's for. You can't learn to drive on the street without the learner's permit. I'm for the life of me, I don't know why people don't understand that. You can't, and I get that a lot of time. People call me and ask me, do I need a learner's permit to learn to drive? I mean, You would think that's self-explanatory because it says it in the name. Learner's permit. That's what it is. It's a learner's permit. It's the thing you need before you learn to drive on the street. I'm sorry to be explaining it like, like that, but that's really how it is. A learner's permit is exactly what it sounds like. It is a learner's permit. It is something you need to get before you learn to drive legally on the street. I know people do that all the time, but driving schools, professional driving schools that are licensed by the state of Florida, they're not supposed to take you out for driving lessons if you don't have a learner's permit. So if you call ACC Driving School, you will know the first thing I ask you, do you have a learner's permit? It is required. And 99% of the time, unless I forget for some reason, as soon as I see you, my first question to you is, let me see your permit. Because I want to make sure. Because I actually ran into trouble earlier when I first started the business. Because some kid lied about having a permit and I didn't check. We got pulled over. He got fined $300 and I got fined $300. At the time, I barely charged a little bit more than $300 for his series of lessons. So that was a total loss for me. So I make sure I check. So to recap, if you're 18, 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, and you need to learn to drive on the street, you need a learner's permit. If you're good at driving and you don't need driving lessons, then you can just take your driving test. You don't have to take the physical permit in hand. But again, there's no reason not to, because you will have to pay once. You don't pay twice. You don't pay when you pick up the permit and then you come back and pay again when you take your driving test. It is just one shot. Okay? Okay, let me think about other questions that I get asked. Okay, I get asked about the third party. The third party tests are helping out because the DMV appointment lines are just ridiculous. They're taking months. If you try to get an appointment, you're looking at minimum 2 or 3 months. At the third party site, you can get a driving test probably the same day. I am actually facilitating the driving test right now for a third party that I'm affiliated with. So you can call me to set up your appointment for a third party driving test. But I must warn you that the third party driving test is longer than the regular DMV driving test. At the DMV, a driving test is between 7 and 8 minutes, depending on how fast or slow you drive. It's done in the parking lot at the DMV. Except for Margate in South Florida, the driving test is done entirely in the parking lot at all of the different DMVs. Now, if you go to a third-party site, that 7 to 8 minute driving test is now 15 to 20 minutes. And it is outside on the street. It is not on the main roads for the most part. The ones that I know, they're doing it in the neighborhood. But you still have to leave the parking lot, go out onto the street in traffic, and drive around out there for 15, 20 minutes. Like the one I'm affiliated with, the 3-point turn, the parking, the reversing. Well, the parking is done in the parking lot where the office is. But the 3-point turn, the reversing, the quick stop, those things are all done in the neighborhood. So again, the DMV driving test, the appointments are longer. You have to wait longer, but it is an easier test than the test at the third party. And the third party examiners are a lot stricter in my opinion, because they have their business to protect, because they invest a lot of money in getting the capabilities to do the driving test, so they're not going to gamble it on some foolishness. So that's that on that. At the DMV, they it's just a job, really. They're not going to lose their jobs. They're just there to do a job. So you will probably get a break from an examiner at the DMV before you get one from the third party. And that's just the facts. Examiners at DMVs can be a handful for the most part, but most of them are very nice people. People are people. So The DMV is really where it's at. And one thing I don't understand, people will come to the DMV, people will wait until they're 30, 40, 50 to take their driving test. In other words, you put off driving for years. And I've seen that. I've seen that. So many people put off driving for years. And then when it's time to take their driving test, they try to find an appointment. And the appointment is a month away, 2 months away. And all of a sudden, it's a crisis. I can't wait 2 months to take my driving test. Not remembering that they have waited 30 years past the time that they could have taken their driving test. 15 years later, you can get your license in Florida at 16. If you get your permit at 15, you can get your license at 16. Now, if you're 25, that means you've waited quite a long time. If you're 50, you've waited a hell of a lot more time. So, in my opinion, and again, it's my opinion, don't kill me for it. But if you waited 20, 30 years to get your license, 2 or 3 more months will not kill you. I know you've made up your mind it's time to get my license and I don't want to wait, but just look at it logically. 2 or 3 months to wait to get your license, it's really not that big a deal, considering you're not, like the kid that just got his license because he's 16 years old. That's it for the questions and answers. I went on a lot longer than I thought I would, but those are just things that I felt like I needed to say. All right. So again, thanks for watching. Please like the video, share the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Hit that notification bell so you'll be notified when I post my next video. All right. Thank you, and I will see you on the next one.